Hello and welcome to Module 2 of Heart Connections, Strategies for Navigating Conflict and Difference with Kim Lowe in collaboration with Ro Martinez. And Kim, I'm passing it over to you now.
Awesome. Thanks, Khalid. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back into our space. It's really nice to see your faces and know that you're here. And hi, everyone who's catching the recording, because I imagine there's folks who can't make it at this time, but appreciate you very much. And welcome any questions and things like that into the Facebook group. Ro, I'm going to just pass to you. Why don't you say hi and just share where you're at right now.
Hi, everyone. I'm just excited. I was telling Kim, I'm excited to be here. This has been a transformational experience for me, just doing this course. And I'm just happy that we're here just to get into it and connect, answer questions, create collective intelligence, so to speak. So just thank you, Kim, again for the opportunity. And it's been nice. It's been so nice to work with Khalid as well. And so I'm just excited about this.
Well, so I guess just at the outset, I'd love to say a few words, just review on what we did last week, and then maybe just start to sketch out where we're going to go today. But maybe before I do that, Ro, because I just really appreciate what you said about the transformational, like the potential that you're feeling of what it is that we're doing. Maybe I can just say a few words about how I'm entering today, kind of in that same mood. I feel really humbled by the conflicts that I find myself in. I feel like even though I might have encountered this conflict resolution work specifically more than, I don't know, like more than a decade ago, just pushing that, like, yeah, decade plus a little bit, there are so many ways in which I'm still continually just a beginner. And some of the things that we are learning here and that I'm sharing with you today, it's like to begin to scratch the surface and actually implement it in our lives is quite a marvelous thing. It is quite a marvelous thing that we get to practice over and over. And so even though I'm here really seeking to offer things from my experience and hold the seat of the teacher, so to speak, I very much feel like I am fully on this journey myself, getting my ankles in the mud, getting my knees in the mud, and sometimes really like needing to say prayers and ask for higher guidance when I myself can't see the bigger picture. So kind of enter in with that kind of humility, but also deeply inspired, because even with the little practice that I have done, the impacts can be enormous. The impacts can be huge, and they can ripple out in ways that we don't always see. So I also powerfully believe in that when we just have that little shift in our energy or shift in our perspective, that we are impacting the whole in a bigger way than we could possibly fathom. And so it's always worth it, very, very much worth it. And I like that it's not a causal thing. I like that it's not just a linear thing, that we're actually participating and dancing with a larger, I want to say holograph, but collective is also a good word, as Rose said. We're in something much bigger, and learning to dance with it is absolutely what we're here for. So, Jesse, I'm just happy you're here. Totally fine about the camera. And for those of us that are here, like, thanks for being present. And I really love to see your faces and your reactions, and it helps me feel like these messages are landing or what needs further clarification. So I welcome all your non-verbals. It's good. And later I welcome your verbals, because I want to know what is happening with you as I share this stuff. So let me do that quick review and then the overview of the things. So last week we offered that framework of sameness and difference as a lens, as this sort of yin-yang-esque lens through which we can see our experience and maybe unpack a little bit what's happening in our conversations, why it is that sometimes things feel like they're actually going really well, like the connection is strong and it allows for more things to arise in a conversation, or where sometimes it feels like from the get-go, this is like sketchy territory, and so we used that sameness and difference model as a way of learning and questioning into what's happening. And then we talked about toggling, When do we reflect? When do we listen to cultivate more sameness? When do we slow down? When do we breathe together to create more sameness? Or when do we actually, you know, have the opportunity to take a risk, say something different? Maybe we preface it by letting people know, I'm going to share something a little bit different now. I wonder what's going to happen from that. You know, can I bring forward my truth? Is this that kind of conversation? And then also we touched on like the boundaries sometimes of when we feel like, if some of these shared agreements, if some of the group agreements that we want to have on the table, like being for each other, like we value listening, we value being able to join with and actually empathize or learn about each other's experience. We explored the boundary of like, well, if someone doesn't want to do that, then what choices do we have? And we talked a little bit about like, well, do we want to continue engagement? We talked about some situations where we don't have as much freedom as others. We talked about power differences, which is a much bigger topic, but at least consciously opening up that we have choices along the way. And we do have opportunities to massage things towards a more, say, a positive intention where we do have that influence. That yes, I also believe that can change a lot. And there might be times where we have a sacred no, and we choose to disengage. And then we're clear, we're like in alignment with our highest values of why we're doing that. It might not be just coming from, say, triggers or something like that, where you then later regret, why did that happen? So, and in and among that, and also pointing back at the previous seminar, we talked about working with strong emotions and the importance of working with like this vehicle of our bodies. So being able to discern the sensations, the sensations on that immediate, unmediated bodily level of like what's happening in the stomach, what's happening in the heart, what's happening in the throat, what's happening in the skin of my brow, what's happening in my palms, you know, and using all of that information to, well, not using that information, but becoming aware of that information, and then learning to slow down when we are noticing that a feedback loop is occurring between the mind and the body, and one is starting to fuel the other, and when that might be taking us out of the moment itself. And if that's the case, do we need to pace the process? Do we need to take time to feel? Is that something we can do together, or is that something we should do apart for the sake of processing, for the sake of checking in with our intention, for the sake of knowing, okay, yeah, I'm triggered. I'm in a fight or flight moment. Like, I don't think that staying is actually going to be a wise idea. How do we then script and ask for that space? And then the transmutation process, which again is more in depth in the recording of the seminar. For anyone who hasn't really caught that yet, that's the thing where we get to go deep. We get to move into the sensations. We give ourselves permission to drop the story just for a little while, to just feel more directly, and then source the wisdom in that emotion that then gives us the information. Okay, so who do we want to be then in this conflict? What is it we really want to stand up for? And then it might come to that we're negotiating that with others. It might come to a place where we really want the other to have the courage to bring that forward. We might learn to model talking straight, that talking congruently bit. And Michaela, I remember you had a good question about it. Was, how do we finesse that? How do we practice that? It's a really important part. And just to that end, sorry, I know I feel like I'm kind of galloping a little, covering a lot of ground, but like just to that end, I really sincerely believe that the more authentically we can be ourselves, and I don't know, I make this gesture, it's like this verticality, it's like my heart, my gut, my mind, my speech, we, the collective of Kims, we're aligned, and people can feel that and trust it. And I think that allows us to deepen in relationship and invites others like, yes, please do the same. I want to trust, I'm getting to know you, that you're not just like running a script or doing something because you're afraid of the alternatives. Like, that is a really, really deep connection then, that our hearts can feel like, okay, you know, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I am excited to be in this with you. I am staying. I want to know what happens next. And then it's genuinely creative. And I think our compassion functions really well from that space. Really deep heart connection and trust. And we'll come to that at the end of this too, of like using our hearts as compasses as we continue to traverse this territory of our lives. So I kind of dove a little deeper into that review than I intended to. So I'll just really briefly say this overview for what's today, and then I would love to put us into breakouts so that you can have a chance to just say hi, greet one another, and then I'll give you a few little prompts. But today, so we're going to talk about the what, like what is it that we fight about? And the two topics that I'm going to offer you, among more that are possible, there's more lenses we can look at this through, but the two that I felt were really pivotal for what I wanted to share in a course of this kind of size and like depth is truth and the three perspectives. So what are the different perspectives or viewpoints or truths that could be coming into this space from you or from the environment, from the other? How do we just sort of tease some of those apart for the sake of working out when are things butting heads? And how should we respond to that? How can we like know what's happening? Really, maybe on a slightly meta level, like what is happening here when a conflict is coming up, where these truths are colliding? And then following on from that, we're going to talk a bit about shadow, which is I think it's a really fascinating topic. And we're going to do it the best justice that we can in the little time that we have, and point to how it's really actually very interesting how it intersects with this question of truths, how this question of like identity, like what it is we really identify with, and really for the sake of like, can we create more flexibility? Can we create more space to try on other things? And in so doing, not foist enemies out there that become blockages. There might be times where we still have a sacred no, the complaint might still exist, but the way that we relate to it changes, and that allows for more creativity and compassion. And we're going to do a journaling exercise. And then towards the end, we're going to return to intention and talk about this wholeheartedness piece, which I think is where we can source some of the spiritual inspiration for, why we do this work at all. So yeah, I will hit pause and ask Khalid to please pop you all into breakout groups where I would love for you to just say hi to one another. Maybe give like just a one-word check-in, like my word right now could be like excited or a little fizzy or full. And then I would like you to, so I had a little thing to put in the chat just to, oh, thanks, Ro, you're doing that for me. I don't need to do that twice. And then, so anything from last week, like what's staying for you from last week? Do you have a quick anecdote you want to share about a time you practiced a skill, or is there a insight that came for you last week that you just want to like share with folks? Like, this is what I'm still working with. This is what is still alive in me. And then what are you most interested in learning today? So again, kind of like stoking that intentionality piece so that you can have, just this like awareness in your own learning journey that you're continuing to orient towards what matters most to you, which can be different for us. So yeah, that's it. Thanks. It's groups of 3 and we'll see you back here soon. So yeah, welcome back everyone. I hope that was nice to connect and hear each other and share yourself where you're at. So yeah, a few moments here just to touch in with you. Would you like to put any words into the chat about anything you're working with or anything that you want to focus on this week? And would any of you like to share? You have a few minutes. It'd be nice to hear some of your voices if you want to just share where you're at, what you're looking forward to today, or if you have a question about anything that happened last week that you would like to address before moving forward. Also space for that right now. So option A, B, C, or D.
I can invite someone if you like, Kim. Is that okay? Maybe
Sure.
I can invite, maybe I'll invite. Jess, Jessie, you put your hand up.
Thanks for sitting up. And being
Oh no, she didn't put her hand up.
Put my hand up, but I can share.
Okay.
So yeah, you're gonna call the one who said she was exhausted, but no, it's fine because I there's something I need to get off my chest. I just shared with my my partners in my breakout room. I really enjoyed that conversation. Kind of intimate space we created really quickly. Yeah, so I'm in a better place than I was just a few minutes ago. But something that's coming up for me is I'm a mediator. I do primarily workplace mediation, and yesterday I had the worst mediation I've ever had, and I think for sure the situation was made worse in the mediation. And I don't usually feel that way. Like usually I feel like my impact is somewhere between neutral and good. So I have a lot to unpack there. One of the parties thought I was biased. And ironically, if I was biased, I was biased for her, but the way I was running the mediation gave her a different perception. And I'm in conflict, well, not explicit conflict, but I have some serious concerns about the way I co-mediated this case, and I have serious concerns about my co-mediator's approach and choices. So now I feel like I'm potentially in conflict with him, or at least I feel like I don't feel like I can mediate with him again, at least not without like a lot of conversations. So I'm a mess. And then I stayed up way too late watching TV last night. And then my 6-year-old woke me up at 6 a.m. Are you glad you called on me, Ro? So I'm at about 4 hours sleep. And thank you for listening. But what I'm hoping, is that, I can gain some insight into either what happened or, if and how to address it.
Okay. Yeah, great. I hope that as we work through today that, some things might come to you, like interesting perspectives from which to see this, or anything that can help with it. Here it's like it's a conflict, and then it's a conflict with your co-mediator about actually how things went down. And I know that you yourself come like with a depth of knowledge, reflection, and experience. So I'm not inclined to offer anything at this moment, but I'm curious with you to see if anything will support from what we're doing today. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Would anyone else like to share anything briefly about your intention today, or a question that you might have? And then we'll move into our first topic, truth in 3 perspectives.
I'm here. Yes.
Hi, Alexis. Michaela, I saw your hand, so we can come to you quickly after this. Hey, Alexis. Glad you're here.
I'm interested in getting more information around shadow.
Shadow, cool. Do you want to expand anything in particular?
No, because I don't have enough information to articulate it clearly.
Okay,
I understand it in concept and I understand it theoretically, but I really don't, I can't, I'm open to what I can't language it. This is the second time in 2 weeks that it has come into my experience. And so just the way I'm wired, that means that it's something I need to learn.
Yeah.
And so what you're hearing is me just being totally open.
Love it. Thank you. Let's come back and check in with you after we've sort of turned that corner and had the experience. I would love to hear if anything has come through, like information or insight around it. Yeah, thanks for speaking that.
Thank you.
Glad you're here. And Michaela?
Yeah, I would just +1 to what I heard Alexis say. I am interested in how to draw out the shadow awareness in conversation in real time, since it sounds like, it sounds like it requires a lot of self-awareness. So I'm interested in, what that looks like.
Cool. Thank you. Nice. Great. Well, I'm looking forward to it too. We'll see what happens. All right. So, Ro, do you mind please sharing our slide, and let's sort of segue into the first topic, and it'll help lay groundwork for what will come later as shadow. And I'm just going to acknowledge that Candace said that she felt very supported in what arose as she became present to her intention again. It felt safe to share and be vulnerable. Great. I'm glad to hear that. And if you feel like it, Candace, if you can pop your intention into the chat, I'm really curious to know what it is too. Thank you. I'm going to move forward. So I'm not a natural slide maker, so please forgive me. It's just not how my brain thinks so much. So some of these are a little texty, if you know what I mean. But the 3 perspectives is really helpful, I think, for starting to decode what is happening when we get into conflict I'll share like what these three perspectives are, but just as a spoiler alert, the working theory is that conflicts happen quite commonly when one perspective is mistaken for or is masquerading as another. And I'll hopefully make the meaning of that clear as I go on. But let's start from the top. So our first person perspective is what we hold in our I perspective, and no one else, nothing else can verify the truth of this except that it is true for you. If you feel that something is true for you, this is your experience, this is your perception of something, this is what, it's just something that it's happened for your sensory information, your body, your internal knowing, those form your first person I experience. It includes your truth. When we say speaking your truth, it includes, when we say talking straight, it's that information that's really coming from inside of you, and you don't really need anyone else's endorsement for it to be true. And someone trying to refute it can be incredibly frustrating, but at the end of the day, like ineffective. If that's your truth, then you get to call it. Okay. I'll go to the second person. Now, this is kind of let me just, preface this by saying this comes largely from integral theory, the work of Ken Wilber, who really informed Diane Musho-Hamilton's work. I haven't really studied directly with Ken, but integral theory permeates maybe the way in which we have studied Zen with her, and also the conflict resolution approach because of what it says about truths and the nature of our experience. So the second person is an interesting one. Last week, we talked about reflective listening, and I said you need to drop your own self-reference points to join with the other and let their experience just exist in the space, and you reflect it back to them. That's validating and hearing and being there for their experience, and that's what we call the second person as you. And there's another layer to this, which is we. So the other, when your other person in front of you has their own experiences, their beliefs, their perceptions, and you join with it like wholly from your own place, it becomes a we, and it joins as this shared perception, shared belief, common truth, cultural values, agreements, commitments, I've said here. And this stuff is super important for the formulation of societies, for the formulation of common myths, of narratives, of how we make sense of the world. It informs our legal systems. It informs our fairy tales that we tell to the next generation. These are stories about how the world works, and this is what we'll call this second person we. And a lot of times, I think this was in some of the marketing material, we have a quote which is, a lot of conflict resolution boils down to what we can agree to be true between us. What can we both agree to be true? Do we agree that we value this life? Do we agree that we value this commitment? Do we agree that we think that another way is more reasonable in this circumstance? A lot of the conflicts that we might have, say in just your average social space, might be around this second person disagreeing on what you hold in our shared space, and sometimes animosity around that. The third person is more of that scientific space shuttle looking back down on the earth and observing, oh, we have a blue planet. I can't even say it's a beautiful blue planet. That's a subjective thing, but it is a blue planet. It is round. We breathe oxygen. When we did our sentence stems, one thing we share in common is that we have two eyes. One thing we share in common is that we're here on Zoom. These are the observable facts, so to speak, and they don't really need anyone else's verification when it's true on that level. So if someone says, I don't believe in science, it doesn't stop this third person truth, actually being the case that, say, gravity exists. Someone doesn't believe in gravity, it kind of doesn't matter. Gravity still exists. So those are the three truths. And let me just take a breath and make sure that because I have a little tight timeline on actually setting this out. So yeah, I said conflating leads to conflict and confusion. So yeah, let me go a little bit more into that. So sometimes my in a bid to make my first person experience mean more in the conversation, I might put it out there as a third person truth. I might hold it out there as fact that someone wronged me. Yeah, do you see that? It's like, I'm going to put it out there as like, this is true, and they can't say it's not true. But actually, if I'm sourcing most of that from my internal experience of I feel misaligned, I feel disrespected, then blowing that up to be a third person truth is going to be a problem, especially for the other person. Another example is, I've put it here as like, my feeling is your intention. So sometimes we know, I mean, in a lot of the literature, in our common conversation, we understand that impacts and intentions are things that we need to be aware of. When someone's hurting us, I believe there's actually a difference if they intend to hurt us versus if they don't intend to hurt us. And treating them as the same sometimes, I think, does a bit of a, it can do more harm to our humanity, I think, when we don't take into account the intentions that are there. I think that there's still, the impacts are still extremely important and aren't to be done away with just because the intention isn't there. But you can also see where this gets like meaningful if someone's like, well, I didn't intend to do that. And you're saying, well, the impact is still there. So knowing what's in that second person truth for them, allowing that to come out is part of this picture when we're, you know, explicating what our conflict is about. Another thing that can happen is when yeah, let's just go to the actual example again. We're just trying to make it up right now because it's kind of like, it's a lot to get tangled in, I feel. So when I say we feel, if I'm sitting in a meeting and I'm like saying to someone else, we all think that, we all feel that, or isn't it the case that, you know, I'm talking about my day, I'm like, you know how you get tired and you know how you slam your thumb in the door, you know how you shout at your kids. Someone in the room might be like, I don't do that. Like, you're including me, you're co-opting my experience into the we, but it's actually not the case. In that situation, it's really much better that I speak from my I perspective of like, when I get angry, I have a tendency to cut corners and get mad. You know, just hold it in our I perspective. And in doing that, we're going to create a lot less of that excess friction in the room of other people feeling like, hey, I never said that I agreed to that. You didn't check with me. And there can be tremendous power in each of these perspectives. And the thing to pay attention to is, when is it relevant? When is it meaningful in the moment? Is this conversation about fostering connection and making sure that each person's I is understood and really getting to what is in the we? Or is this about something real, legit is happening in the third person, and our first person experiences actually need to take that into account? So knowing what is the intention of your conversation, or what are the needs of the people involved, will help us to tune to, oh, okay, in this conversation about climate change, where people are getting overly anxious and we don't know what to do with the vast reality of what's here, maybe we need to actually pause on the third person and come into the I and come into the we. And from there, know that we have a common bond through which to address the third person, for example. So it's about tuning into what's relevant, what is needed, and having the flexibility at times to maybe put down whatever it is we've been arguing for so valiantly, and actually tune to, well, what else could be included here? Is there something else that wants to be brought forward that would actually help and serve the moment? So I think that's, yeah. Thank you, Khalid, for giving me a little cue about our timeline. So I'll stop there. I think that's enough. Can you just like give me a show of hands? Are you kind of feeling into what I'm describing around this stuff? Okay, cool. That's helpful. Thank you. We're going to do a little exercise, and then we're going to come back and we can have some questions. But we're going to do a little exercise so that we can like literally, in our own sense, embody this. And the exercise, so Ro, do you mind popping up that next slide that we have? And then I'm also going to put this in the chat right now. So these are going to be groups of 3, and you're going to be in a breakout group for about 15 to 20 minutes-ish. Yeah, I'm just going to put it in the chat so that it's you've got this info in multiple places. So when you go in the breakout, you can see it. So we're going to model this. Khalid and I are going to model this. And the person number one, I think it's going to be, did we say Khalid, you're going to be our speaker first? Yes. And then Ro is going to be the listener, which is the second person. And then the third person is going to be the witness, and that's going to be me. So Khalid, the speaker, just for the sake of our model, he's just going to do this for 1 minute, but he's just going to share about a conflict that's come up for him in the last week. Ro is the listener, and he's going to be doing that skill that we talked about last week, which is to actively reflect back what he hears. Just capturing the essentials, no need to get this word for word perfect. And then importantly, because this is the truth verification for second person, he's going to check in with Khalid. Did I hear you right? Is that what you wanted to say? Is that what you wanted me to know? And then give him an opportunity to clarify or say like, yeah, not quite, more this, or yeah, that's right. And also just like this, and then let him feel heard. So just that reflection back. And then as third person, I'm just going to be witnessing. No need to talk, no need to react, just like observe what's happening with them, what's happening with inside me in the space, how people are listening. So yeah, let's do that. So whenever you're ready, Khalid, and you can do that for a couple minutes.
Sounds good. I'll hop right in. So yesterday I had a moment of conflict with my father. So I was set to take him to work, and it takes about 10 minutes if we're, organized and managing our time well to get to work. He, in exchange, has kind of continuously made vegetable/fruit smoothie juices for me, and as I take him to work. And so my dad is very much the universe will work itself out type of person when it comes to time. However, my mom is like, if you're on time, you are late. So I feel like there's an internal conflict that's always in me around that. So when I see my dad, it's now, like we have 7 minutes before we have to get him to work. I'm like starting to like, just help him try to pack up some of the frozen fruit and things like that, put it back into the freezer. And so I'm like, Dad, like I got this part. You just like finish packing up your stuff so that we can then get in the car and go. And so he's like, okay, well, like I'm ready to go. So like, that's why I'm packing up this fruit. And so it was just a moment where I knew that he wasn't done packing his stuff, but I had to take a step back and say, you clearly need to do this right now. So I'm going to let you finish packing the stuff. I'm going to go to the car with this juice that you just so kindly made me. And when you're ready, go. We were late to work because he still needed to pack his stuff. And the car ride was a little awkward because I felt obviously knew that he was wrong. And I obviously knew that he was wrong when he communicated to me. So it was just awkward. I think we got over it, when I picked him up later, but it was a moment of conflict where I decided to say less because me trying to prove my point wasn't going to do anything, but I felt like I was right and he was wrong.
Okay. So what I heard you say is that so there was a conflict between you and your dad, and your dad is an amazing smoothie maker, or well, like juice smoothie style, and he did that, and then he was cleaning and putting everything away, and you were aware that he he had to still pack things, and you were trying to be supportive to clean everything that was out for doing the smoothies. He didn't want to do that, and you chose to just go to the car with your drink, knowing that you guys were going to be late. So it was kind of awkward during the going into work. So yeah, and then you were noticing that your style of organizing time and how your mom and your dad, the way they organize time is different, and you were feeling that conflict as well.
Totally. That is it right there. That's really in a nutshell. We're all right now, but I think you captured the moment of awkwardness well. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you too. So we're I think we've got time just to pivot again, do we have time to pivot again? Or is that clear? Is that clear? Do you get it? We would have changed and made it so that I'm going to be the listener, Ro is going to be the speaker, and Khalid just gets to witness. But that's the exercise. Did you see that? How like Khalid was in his first person, Ro was like, okay, I'm with you, I'm paying attention to you, and I was just like, I'm third person. Kimberly, let's hear.
Does the third person reflect anything back or just observe?
Good question. We have left 3 minutes at the end so that we can have a little debrief internally while you're still in your group of 3. And at that time, you can share, like, was there one that was easier for you? Was there one that was more challenging? Third person people can reflect, like, oh, this is what I noticed. And, but in the exercise itself, no need. You're just like, it just is. And then we'll move so that this is really like helpful for the second person, because that's the skill that we most really want to land. And also like get the people, it's just really interesting to hear about each other's conflicts for once. Sometimes just like, well, what happens for other people? So yeah, thank you for asking that. That's good clarification. So it's going to be like 5. So they did it a little faster because we're just, faster with the modeling, but Ro could have asked, is there anything you want to add? Is there anything I missed? And then Khalid could say, yeah, actually, I feel like I am bringing in what's right about my mother. And I noticed that it was from that place I was judging him as wrong. And then Ro could say, oh, okay, right. So this conflict is actually like, it's interesting that you are bringing in your mother and it's from that place you're judging him as wrong. I heard you say that. And then Khalid could be like, yeah, solid. Like, that's how we know it worked. Khalid going, yes, that feels true. Thank you. It should be relieving. We talked about sameness is soothing, relieving, feels like belonging, feels like your perspective is allowed to exist, is worthy of being heard. That's how we know it's worked. And if not, you can just ask another question of like, oh, do you want to tell me? Oh, sorry, I missed it. Sorry, I didn't quite, maybe I just got caught up. Can you just say again, like, what is the most important thing you want me to know if I'm the listener, right? And then I can try again. Let's have another go. So, okay, so is that clear? So we're doing like 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 3 is the timing. And we'll give little time keys when it's time to change the partner, change the partner, change the partner, and then like debrief. Some people, it was like it's really easy to listen. I'm like, oh, thank goodness, I can just do this. Some people, it's like, no, I really like sharing, and actually listening's hard. So yeah, that's the practice. Any other questions from anyone? Or is it Rose? You want to?
Yeah, I wanted to comment something. Just the purpose is notice with the different roles, noticing your reaction to that role. I think like how you like Kim said it at the end, like, is it easier for you to listen than to share? Is it easier to witness? Like just noticing how are you relating to that particular role, whether it's listening, stating, or witnessing, noticing everything that comes up in your experience. That's all, Kim. Thanks.
Thank you. Cool. Well, welcome back, everyone. How was it? How did you find the exercise? Cool. Love to hear from some of you. We just we'll have a couple of minutes before our break, and we can address any questions. Maybe be nice to hear from someone or a group where you felt like it went well, and then maybe another person or group where you had some issues. Maybe we can help address it or tweak it. Feel free to put up your hand, or you can unmute yourself. We're a pretty small group, so yeah. Hey, Chelsea.
Hey. Gosh, that was a really great exercise.
Oh.
Method. I was able to play the role of the listener and the reflector, or the person who was reflecting back what they heard, and then also the observer. And I have been, since last week, I've been practicing deeper listening, and that's been a very embodied, kind of almost transcendent, if that's not too polar opposite, experience for me. And it was really good. I noticed that I learned so much more when I was listening, instead of trying to think of how to fix this other person's conflict that they were having. That was an old habit that's been a habit of mine, wanting to fix it right away or come up with some sort of anecdote to share right away. Maybe even like hearing a word that they use and then using another vocabulary word. God, so it was a really good perspective for me. And I love being able to practice that. I noticed as the observer, I started to tune out a little bit, and it took a little bit more energy for me to just stay in the room and stay present, because I felt like I was trying to, instead of just being able to just witness and just watch, I wanted to like figure out what was going on with both people instead, and wondering what the listener is thinking right now. And really taking on the energy of the story that the speaker had. And then I was disassociating. And I didn't think that it would be that difficult for me to be the observer, and it was, and I was super surprised by that.
That's so interesting hearing you say that. It sounds like when you were practicing being the listener, you had a really good embodied, like effective experience of dropping your own curiosity or your own agenda or wish to help and actually just join with them and let them be. And like that was sound really healthy growth. And then when you moved to third, it's like that part of you came back online of like, I wonder what's happening. I wonder if I can, that's really interesting. That character popped up in another guise. Yeah. I'm glad you noticed that it was taking you out of the moment. Because that's really the first step, right? The awareness that you're disassociating or you're somehow not staying fully open to what's really here. Because I think that's the problem, is when it like actually disconnects us from what's happening and maybe what the other person, what's the right way to actually connect with them or just be present for them. So yeah.
And thank you for speaking to that too, that it's just like an old habit, or it's personality that, or a way that just popped up. It just popped up. I don't even have to judge it or think, oh no, this is bad. Oh God, I'm doing it again, or what's wrong. It just, okay. And I can observe that.
Yeah, totally. Yes, that's why I say like observe what's happening externally and observe what's happening internally. And that is just what was happening internally. Like, no judgment, just noticing, and then the opportunity to choose. So that's cool. Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Appreciate you sharing that. Let's hear from one more person and then we'll take our break. So did anyone need any help with this exercise? Was there one which just wasn't accessible for you? Chloe. Hey.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I needed help, but I had a sort of opposite experience as Chelsea.
Okay. Yeah,
I thought I was gonna have a hard time being the witness and an easy time listening. But even though we had a lot of trust in our group, I noticed that I was like I got into performance. I was like, oh, I want to do this well. I want to like be good at this, at like giving the feedback and the reflection, and like that impeded a bit, or like I don't know, that was the best listening I've ever done. And I think it's interesting. I was like, because I really respect the people in that group, so that was an interesting thing that was happening in my brain, that it wasn't until now that I realized that was happening, and that I felt really present and at ease and comfort being present as a witnesser, because I didn't feel like there was an expectation, or the expectation was more open.
Yeah, right. That's cool. Thanks for just sharing that. The pretty much straight opposite. I really like that. Yeah, just to see the range of it. And for some reason, and this I hope doesn't come too strongly from my problem solving side, but like in response to both of you, I just want to ask, have you read that poem by Mary Oliver? You do not have to be good is the first line. It's Wild Geese. Maybe we can share that after the event, just as like a sweet thing to leave us with, because the first line of the poem is literally, you do not have to be good. You do not, and then you do not have to walk 1,000 miles on your knees repenting. You just let the soft animal body love what it loves, or be what it is. So yeah,